All right, on the 27th of February, well, prior to that, we left Saipan on the 20th of February at 1600 to proceed within 12 hours of Iwo Jima, because they didn't know at what time they'd be ready for us to come in there, since we were not equipped for frontline combat sort of thing. And I remember newscasts from Japan. They were playing American music, and they probably played for about 2 minutes, something like that, probably the length of the average song, popular songs usually. And they would interrupt every time. They said, "We interrupt this program to very important newscast," and said, "Iwo Jima Island turned into a whirlpool of American blood." Mm-hmm. They would do that hour after hour, all day long. And of course, they on the ship's PA system, they had that up on so we could hear it all over the ship. And on the 27th of February, 1945, we arrived at Iwo Jima offshore, and the Captain weaved the Georgia and the inner circle of ships for air protection for us. I'm sure that's the reason they did that. And we were inside of the outer perimeter of ships, and there were battleships and cruisers firing over us, lobbing shells over us all night long on the night of the 27th of February. And we could hear the shell. We'd go whoosh, kaboom, you know. And so there's not much chance to sleep, knowing that those things could fall short. None of them did, on us at least. And that went on. Of course, we could see, went on all night long. We could see the shells hitting. We could see the flamethrowers over on the island. And then we stayed aboard the Georgia until the second night at midnight. And we disembarked. And I don't know if this was actually true or not, but we were told that this sergeant who was drunk at Hickam Field, that he got drunk again, that he and sergeant in charge of the motor pool for the headquarters squadron had hidden some either beer or whiskey in an ambulance, one of our vehicles, and they had probably given a Navy person a drink or two to take them down there to where they could find it again. And he was drunk again about midnight, and he went up to the captain's quarters and pleaded with him to put us off on the island, because he said, "We've got the general's Jeep and he's over there waiting on us, General Moore's Jeep." And we did have the General Moore's Jeep aboard, but I'm not sure that that whole story was true and would have had anything at all to do with the time that we were put off of the Cape Georgia. But anyway, it was at midnight. We were put on to an LCT. And of course, Iwo Jima is pretty nice weather there, even in February. It gets a little cool in the mornings. But I remember the wind was blowing, and we came in on the east side. We were on the east side of the island. And we went around Suribachi on the LCT. And I crawled up under a tarpaulin on one of the trucks that was aboard. LCT is a light truck landing craft. And I was crawled under that tarpaulin, whatever it was loaded with, to stay out of the wind. Well, it took us from just a few minutes to get around Suribachi. And we waited until about 5 o'clock in the morning to get a place to park on the opposite beach, on the western side. And there were ships, landing craft as far as you could see. In fact, when we came in to the island, it looked like on the east side that you could walk from one ship to the other as far as you could see. I never saw so many ships assembled in one place. And anyway, we had no orders that I was aware of on what to do, since there were just 6 of us from the headquarters squadron. We didn't know where to go. We didn't know what we were going to do. So one of the sergeants went up to the beachmaster. They had lights on and PA system and all of that sort of thing, unloading as fast as they could, every kind of thing in the world. And they went up and talked to the beachmaster and asked him what we should do. And he said, well, if just get somewhere out of the way, and pointed a place where we could get out of the way until daylight. And said if somebody had not showed up looking for us by that time, that he would try to find out if our outfit was there and what we could do. Well, about 7 o'clock, just after daylight, the Jeep came bouncing over the side of the hill, and we recognized the driver as one of our people. And he picked us up and took us up in about the, I guess the center of the island, close to probably within 100 or 150 yards of Surabauchi. And on our right was Surabauchi, and on our left, probably 50 yards away, Marine artillery was set up, still firing north. And so our headquarters squadron was having breakfast, so we joined them for breakfast. And then after breakfast, they had gotten there the day before, and they were already dug in. They were dug in back over the side toward the eastern side of the island in the narrow part next to Surabauchi. And there's somewhat of, it wasn't exactly a level place, but the terrain was such that you could dig a foxhole in there. So they were all dug in. So Sergeant Roger Fuchs, the first sergeant of the headquarters squadron, he told Bibb Overback from Huntingburg in there. In fact, I talked to Bibb just Sunday, and he's 85 now, I'm 77. And Bibb and I were foxhole buddies. And so Sergeant Fuchs told us to find us a place and dig in. So the only place that was left was on the outer perimeter, back towards Surabauchi, on the east side of Surabauchi. So that's a little frightening to be on the outer perimeter, because we didn't know what all was out there. And so we dug in, and Iwo Jima is black sand. It's a volcanic island. In fact, Iwo was a part of the volcanic islands. So they're about 750 miles directly south, almost directly south of Tokyo. And so we dug in, and then I believe it was the next day, that sand is hard to walk in. It was hard for some of our vehicles to get off the ships and get in. Some of the things got stuck on the initial landing and this sort of thing in that sand. And it just looked like black sand is what it looked like. And of course, some part of it was a little bigger flakes in the fine sand. But anyway, the sides would not stay up, so we had to sandbag. We sandbagged, I believe it was 3 sides of our foxhole. And then I found some wood. The first thing that I found is just down a little ways from us, is still beyond the outer perimeter the next morning. And I took my little pick and I opened up this box. It's about the size of a old-fashioned orange crate. The old-fashioned one's a little bigger than the present-day orange crates. And it had Japanese writing on it. And of course, we'd been trained on various things, but not as well as the infantry and Marines. And I took that top off, and there's some nice-looking measuring tapes in there, about 5 to 7 inches in diameter. And I picked one of them up and thought, well, how nice to them to leave us all of these kind of things. Everybody can get one of these. A lot of people can. And there must have been several dozen of them in that box, that crate. And somebody sort of whispered to me, said, do you know what you're holding in your hand? And I said, no. And he said, you have a landmine. Of course, they were not armed, and I gently laid it back down in there and looked elsewhere for the lumber that we used to shore up that one side of the foxhole with wood. We drove stakes in there and nailed wood, and you saved every piece of wood from the shipping boxes and all that sort of thing. Well, the first night that we were there, I hadn't slept in 2 nights. You ever been awake for 2 solid nights, even at 18, 19 years old? It's a little bit hard. And I was awfully tired. And at about 10 o'clock, Bibb Overbeck heard the commotion about 10 o'clock, our first night there. So we heard voices, and we had orders to stay in that foxhole from 7 o'clock in the evening until 7 o'clock in the morning, not get out for anything. And so we heard voices, and we looked to see what time it was, and it's time for us to get out. We realized there were people out. And within about 2 feet of our foxhole, and there wasn't much wider space than that, probably 3 feet between us and the next foxhole, other foxholes adjacent to us. And this Japanese had to walk in that space. And there were 3 guard posts firing on him. And we had 3 people about 50 feet apart in foxholes for their own protection. An officer up through captains pulled guard duty, 3 people on a post, and two watched and 1 slept so they could get some rest during the night. So, but anyway, there were 9 people, as far as I know, were all firing on him. They could see him, a little bit in moonlight. And he held a grenade to his chest. He blew off his lower jaw, opened up his chest, you could see his heart and lungs. And we could not find where anyone had hit him. Of course, they could have hit him in the spots that was blown up, because apparently they had this thing about they would not let the enemy, if their life had to be taken, they would do it themselves. They blew it up. Now, you have all kinds of people in service. I would not think of doing anything like this. We're not supposed to do things like this. But somebody in our outfit, and I don't remember his name, had a little penny matchbox. And he had some little needle-nose pliers, and he was flipping the gold crowns off his upper jaw in that little matchbox. Then later on, several days later, another one got way down in the middle of our bivouac area. And before they picked him up in the day, somebody had taken an ear off. Apparently it's a souvenir. I could not do anything like this at all, and most of our people could not. In fact, just yesterday we were in Knoxville talking to a guy. He was in the Army in the Philippines, and he was telling about that there were Japanese up on a wall, and there was a tree in the Philippines that he shot him off of there. Then he saw one coming down a road near where they were bivouacked on patrol, where they were on patrol. And he thought it was one of our people, one of our American people. And he finally realized that he was in a Japanese uniform. And he took sight on him and couldn't pull the trigger. And he did it again and couldn't pull the trigger. Then the third time he said, I must. And he took sight and shut his eyes and got him. Well, in that same vein, probably when I was looking the next day or a couple of days later after we were in the foxhole, I went down a ways, and there was a body, what was left of a body. Everything was gone except the major joints, the ankle, the knee, the hip, part of the skull, the shoulder. Ribs were burned up with a flamethrower. And I thought, how angry that Marine must have been to hold that flamethrower on him all this time. And I cried out to God. I said, we've gone mad. We've absolutely, the world has gone mad. And I said, somewhere, even with all the stories that we had heard about how cruel, and I guess most of it was true, I don't know, that you couldn't help but think somewhere he had a sister or brother or sisters or brothers. He had a father or mother, perhaps. He had kinfolks that did not know and probably never knew what happened to him. And this is a reaction I think that many of our people had. I was on guard duty in this 3 in our outer perimeter one night, and there was a big rock that's probably It's probably half or a quarter as big as this room, and as big as this area up here where I am. And it was slanted, sloped, sort of flat down, and you could walk up that thing, and down on the lower side, it looked to me like, it had a little moonshine at night. It looked to me like somebody was starting to climb up that rock. So I held a carbine for 2 hours on that bush, ready to fire. If you ever hold a carbine, and it's not one of the heavier ones, you know, 30 caliber carbine, if you hold it for 2 hours, your arm breaks, you know. But I was ready to fire it if there was any movement. I was going to fire it if there was any movement. And I've talked at least 3 times to our 8th graders up in Spring City Elementary School about my experiences there. And I've told them, I said, I never fired a shot at anybody on the Iwo Jima. Never fired a shot at anybody. But I fired 15 rounds. 15 rounds out of my foxhole. One night, this had to be in late March or early April, before the 7th of April, because we come out of the foxholes about that time. Because we had gotten, we had an information officer, we had a PA system set up. And since we were supposed to be in foxholes from 7 to 7, this was about 9 o'clock one night, and our public information officer came on the PA system about 9 o'clock. Most of us had not gone to sleep, but we were in the foxholes. And we had heard firing on the north end of the, sounded like toward the north end of the island, all kinds, and we thought there'd been a Japanese landing or something was going on. And the officer kept, he was a major, and he kept saying, give me your attention, please. He wanted everybody to be awake. Attention, please, give me your attention, please. And he kept doing on. He said, come on, man, tell us what's going on. And he said, we have just gotten word by shortwave radio that Germany has capitulated. That end of the island went up, and all kinds of firing, anti-aircraft, a whole bit. And it didn't happen at all. They were expecting Germany to give up, but what it was, there was 2 Marines on walkie-talkies playing like reporters, reporting that it had happened. And somebody picked him up on the shortwave frequency. The radio was being gospel truth. And the commanding general, Smith, I believe was his name, of all forces at that time on the island, I believe the Marines had left at that time. He was in a Jeep running around saying, cease firing, and every time he'd do it, the anti-aircraft just opened up that much more. A very dangerous situation. I fired out over, I knew there was a minesweeper out there, but I'd seen nothing else out on the water. 15 rounds. Well, they called us down to our mess tent and bring our guns with us. Well, I knew what they were going to do, suspected, bring our guns and ammo with us. And of course, we didn't take all of our ammo with us. We didn't have that much, but Bibb Overbeck, I couldn't find my cleaning equipment in the dark, and my flashlight probably wasn't working. And anyway, I couldn't find it, but Bibb found his real quick, and I run a patch through, little oil through my gun. And we went down there and they checked them. They were smelling them. Well, of course, after they smelled the first 2 or 3, they've got that fine, that powder and scent, and they can't really tell what's going on, but they made us think they could. And they passed me with flying colors. And Bibb, they detained him, and I asked him a couple of years ago, I said, Bibb, what'd they do to you? He said, they just kind of chewed him out a little bit and let him go. And they told us if we weren't capable of handling ammunition, they was going to take it. Well, some of them did turn in some ammunition, but most of us still had some ammunition they didn't know about. But anyway, that's one of the things that happened there. Then on the 26th, or the 25th, excuse me, 25th of March, 1945, the 21st Fighter Group, ground echelon, arrived offshore, but did not disembark until the 26th of March. That was one of our fighter groups. And on the 26th of March, there was a banzai attack on the northern end of the island. And this was in the area of some of the outfits of the 7th Fighter Command. And of course, there were other people there too, and I don't have a complete report, or any report on what happened to others. But in that we had mostly pilots from the 21st Fighter Group, and the island had been secured on the 26th of February. They'd been declared secured, and we had pilots mostly in the 21st Fighter Group, and there were others bivouacked in the air, 726 Signal Air Warning Company, the 465th Aviation Squadron, and the 548th Night Fighter Squadron. Well, in those outfits, there were, in the 21st Fighter Group, there were 14 killed, 50 wounded, for a total of 64 casualties. In the Signal Air Warning Company 726, there was 2 killed, 2 wounded, for a total of 4 casualties. In the 465th Aviation Squadron, there were 22 killed, 17 wounded, for a total of 39 casualties. 549th Night Fighter Squadron, there were 6 killed, 19 wounded, for a total of 25, making a grand total of 44 officers and enlisted men killed, with 88 wounded, a total of 132 casualties in that Banzai raid. And of course, they'd just come onshore. 21st Fighter Group had, not expecting this, and I say most of them were pilots, and they had not even dug in. Okay, of course, General Moore, backing up a little bit, General Moore is our commanding general. He's a brigadier general, and he led the 15th Fighter Group, and my date is March the 5th. Some, I think, have this as 6th, and they've been using the Japanese Far Eastern calendar. But my date was March the 5th, that General Moore led the 15th Fighter Group, P-51 fighter aircraft, and landed at Iwo Jima. Then 2 days later, on the 7th, I believe it was, some of the P-51s flew some cover for the Marines on the northern end of the island, did some strafing for them. Then early on, I think it was, I guess before we even got there, it was a B-29 that landed there and took off again. Japanese had 3 small airstrips there. And then I think it was one of the night fighter squadrons also followed the 15th Fighter Group in. And so there was, we had 4 fighter groups in 7th Fighter Command. They got there at different times. The 15th came in first, the 21st came in, then later on, several weeks later, the 506 came in, then up probably June or July, the 414th. Well, the 15th Fighter Group, 21st Fighter Group, and 506th Fighter Group all had P-51 fighters. And then the 3 squadrons each one of those groups. Then the 414th, they had 3 squadrons also, and they had P-47 Thunderbolts. Then we had 2 night fighter squadrons, the 549th Night Fighter Squadron and the 548th Night Fighter Squadron. Of course, they had the P-61 Black Widow night fighters. And they mostly flew defense, being sent up to intercept any Japanese aircraft that tried to get in, and several did get in over the island. Most of them, of course, were shot down or ran away from the island. Then
you okay? You have a 3 minutes.
April the 7th in 1945, this was a history-making thing. There was 119 P-51s of the 15th and 21st Fighter Groups, of which 91 completed the mission of escort of the B-29s to Tokyo and Nagoya. And this was the first land-based aircraft that flew escort for the land-based B-29s is flying out of the Marianas, out of Tinian, and mostly. And this was the 20th Air Force, 21st Bomber Command, and we were attached to the 20th Air Force, but we were part of the 7th Air Force, so we could wear the 7th Air Force patch on one side and the 20th Air Force on the other side of our uniform. But then on the, I'll leave this for later, but the most fearful time on Iwo Jima was ammo dump. That was going up, and it was fairly close to our outfit. It's really a frightening experience.
Okay.